Peppa Pig, George's friend. Peppa and her friends are having lots of fun at the playground today. Peppa is on the roundabout with Susie Sheep and Danny Dog. George is playing in the sandpit with Mummy Pig. Rebecca Rabbit and her little brother Richard Rabbit arrive. Richard has brought his toy dinosaur.
Hello everyone,
says Rebecca.
Please can I play on the roundabout too?
Hop on, Rebecca, says Daddy Pig.
Let's go really fast,
says Rebecca. Richard wants to go on the roundabout with his big sister. Peppa sighs.
If Richard gets on it means we can't go fast. Richard, perhaps you'd like to play with George instead,
says Mummy Rabbit.
No,
says Richard.
George has a dinosaur just like yours,
says Mummy Rabbit.
Let's go and see.
Richard is the same age as George, and they both love dinosaurs.
Richard wanted to see George's dinosaur,
says Mummy Rabbit.
Dinosaur,
roars George. George and Richard both giggle. George, can Richard play with your dinosaur? asks Mummy Pig.
No,
says George.
Richard, can George play with your dinosaur?
asks Mummy Rabbit.
No,
says Richard. George and Richard do not want to share their dinosaurs. Mummy Rabbit gives both dinosaurs to George. George laughs and Richard starts to cry. Then Mummy Pig gives both dinosaurs to Richard. Richard laughs and George starts to cry.
George and Richard always cry when they play together,
says Peppa.
Can you two big girls teach him how to play together?
asks Mummy Rabbit. Peppa and Rebecca take George and Richard to the sand pit. The girls show their brothers how to make sand castles.
Wow!
George uses his spade to squash Richard's sandcastle. Richard cries. Richard uses his spade to squash George's sandcastle. George cries. This game has not gone very well. Oh no! George, what's your favourite thing in the whole playground? asks Mummy Pig.
Seesaw,
shouts George. George sits on one end of the seesaw, but it needs someone on the other end. Richard wants to play on the seesaw too. Mummy Rabbit lifts Richard onto the seesaw. George and Richard go up and down on the seesaw.
George and Richard are playing together,
cheers Peppa. George likes Richard. Richard likes George. George and Richard like playing together. The end. Peppa Pig, Grandpa Pig to the rescue. Grandpa Pig is taking Peppa and George for a ride on his little train, Gertrude. Gertrude has rubber wheels so we don't have to go on train tracks, says Grandpa Pig.
Wow!
I love Gertrude, says Peppa. Miss Rabbit is in her big train, taking the grown-ups to work. Morning, Grandpa Pig, calls Miss Rabbit.
Out on your toy train again.
Gertrude is not a toy. She is a miniature locomotive, says Grandpa Pig. big train is going very fast. It can go much faster than Gertrude. Oh no, the big train has broken down. Gertrude catches up with Miss Rabbit's big train.
You need to get yourself a train that doesn't break down like Gertrude,
says Grandpa Pig.
That's a good idea,
says Miss Rabbit.
I'm borrowing your little train.
All change, calls Mr. Rabbit. All the passengers climb into Gertrude and Grandpa Pig is left behind.
Oh no!
Mrs. Cow is waiting for the train at the next station.
Has the train sunk?
asks Mrs. Cow.
No, this is a toy train,
says Miss Rabbit.
Gertrude is not a toy train. She is a miniature locomotive,
says Peppa. There's a traffic jam on the road, so Miss Rabbit takes a shortcut.
Bonk, bonk. Hello, ducks,
calls Peppa as they ride past the duck pond. Gertrude might not be very fast, but at least she can ride on the grass. Gertrude crawls up the very steep hill.
Wow!
You can make it, cheer the passengers. Gertrude reaches the top of the hill very slowly. By the time she reaches the last station, it will be time for everyone to go home again. Back down the line, Grandpa Pig is trying to mend the big train. Grandpa Pig loves mending things.
So many interesting bits and bobs,
says Grandpa Pig, but can he put them back together again? Finally, Gertrude reaches the station, and so does Grandpa Pig with the big train.
You've mended it,
says Peppa.
All change,
calls Mr. Rabbit. Everyone gets in the big train ready to go home.
Off we go,
says Miss Rabbit.
Stop,
cries Peppa.
What about Gertrude? We can't leave her behind. Don't worry, we can take the toy train as well,
says Miss Rabbit. She uses a crane to hoist Gertrude into the big train.
Wow! Gertrude is not a toy,
says Grandpa Pig.
We know, says Miss Rabbit. She is a miniature locomotive.
Miss Rabbit drives all the passengers and Gertrude home.
Hooray!
Everyone agrees that Gertrude is the best miniature locomotive in the whole world.
Gertrude is the best train in the whole world,
says Peppa. The end. Peppa Pig, Grandpa Pig's greenhouse. Peppa and George are at Granny and Grandpa Pig's house. They race across the garden to find Grandpa Pig.
Hello, Grandpa,
shouts Peppa. George has found a ball and is playing with it.
Careful, George, my greenhouse is made out of glass, which breaks easily,
says Grandpa Pig. Grandpa Pig throws the ball out of harm's way. The ball goes over the fence and lands in Grandad Dog's garden.
Oi! Who's throwing footballs at my greenhouse?
Grandad Dog calls over the fence. Grandpa Pig goes to speak to Grandad Dog.
Call that a greenhouse? It's a pile of rotten old windows,
says Grandpa Pig.
It'll grow more than you do with your fancy grass box,
replies Grandad Dog. Grandpa Pig decides to leave Grandad Dog to his gardening.
Could I have some tomatoes, please, Grandpa Pig?
asked Granny Pig.
I'm afraid the tomatoes aren't ready yet,
says Grandpa Pig.
Maybe Grandad Dog will lend us some of his,
suggests Granny Pig.
Grandad Dog,
calls Granny Pig.
Do you have any tomatoes we could borrow?
Borrow? You can take as many as you like, says Grandad Dog.
Hooray!
Everyone goes into Grandad Dog's greenhouse.
They're a lot bigger than your tomatoes, Grandpa, says Peppa. They may be bigger, but that doesn't mean they are better,
replies Grandpa Pig.
Yummy. This is the best tomato I have tasted ever,
says Peppa, tasting one. Says Grandpa Pig. Now Granny Pig has a basket full of delicious tomatoes.
We're going to make a tomato salad,
says Granny Pig. Grandad Dog tells her about his special tomato and basil salad recipe. The problem is I don't have any basil, says Grandad Dog.
My grandpa had lots of lovely basil,
says Peppa. Grandpa Pig shows them the basil he has grown in his greenhouse.
Wow!
Very impressive, says Grandad Dog. Peppa and George are feeling hungry now.
Is it lunchtime yet?
asked Peppa. It's time to make the salad. First we slice up the tomatoes, says Grandad Dog. Then we use a little splash of olive oil. Don't forget to add these lovely basil leaves, says Grandpa Pig. Time to tuck in, everyone, says Grandad Dog. Grandad Dog's tomatoes are marvellous and Grandpa Pig's basil leaves are beautiful.
This is the best tomato salad in the world ever,
cheers Peppa. The end.
Hi kids, did you have fun watching this video? Then like and subscribe for more.